Hello everybody, and welcome to part 4 of beating Plants vs. Zombies with only parasites. Previously, we finished Frostbite Caves, pillaged Lost City, and had mech battles in the far future, leaving us with only 5 worlds left, and I'm not gonna lie, we cut it pretty close this time around. Starting in the Dark Ages, the world where the red sun isn't over paradise, and the best part about Dark Ages is we get to finally use Tomb Tangler again, and once again, I know it has been completely unusable for the majority of this world's days, partly due to it not being a high enough level to be used on other objects, but Tomb Tangler proves to be a superhuman strength, again instantly nabbing me all the sun on the sun graves, allowing me to survive off of them and maintain the remaining sun I need with Sundew Tanglers. Though on as early as day 3 we have to bring Solar Sage back again. However, I decided that since this probably wasn't the last time I would need it, that I would additionally challenge myself in worlds by, if I need to use Solar Sage, I will originally try to only use just a single one. Once again, this isn't part of the actual challenge, just something additional objectives for fun. Jester zombies also make their debut here, which grab standard projectiles and hurl them back at plants. Though Tomb Tangler and Daisy Chain's gas clears up that little problem, and we overall just smoothly sailed with nothing really of note happening until day 6, where it was a plan your defense, which was resolved with 2 rows of Daisy Chains, and using the already set graves to make Tomb Tangler barriers from the Jesters. Pretty easy day all around. Day 7, we fail automatically due to no tombstones, meaning we need to use a single Solar Sage to get us started until we can get a Sundew Tangler. Then we just absolutely spam the out of Tomb Tanglers and placing Sundew Tanglers in front of them to help us not starve to death from the sun. Also, the Knights make their debut here, but since Tomb Tangler and Sundew both ignore armor, it was a non-issue at the present moment. Day 8, survive with the given plants, more like survive with Day 9, we had our first Evil Potions day, which significantly buffs any zombie that walks over them, but more importantly, it blocks Tomb Tangler and Sundew, and spawns them further down the line if they can't spawn on the leftmost. I actually failed the first time because of that and Necromancy, but I kept spamming Tomb Tangler anyways and just won the second time. Additionally, I decided that Day 9 was where we would introduce the next member of our team, Magnet Shroom, which will help us deal with bucket heads and other nonsense through the rest of the playthrough. How it qualifies as a parasite though, as there is a form of parasitism where the parasite exclusively steals from the other hosts, refusing to give any benefit in return, or just out physically performing them to steal their resources. This is known as kleptoparasitism, aka Detroitism. We were introduced to the wizard zombies on day 11, which are pretty dangerous, but once again for some reason Sundew Tangler is just never targeted. Day 12 was protect puff shrooms, which I failed twice because I kept horribly mismanaging my plant food in order to refresh them so they don't pull a Warbucks main. But a horde of Daisy Chains in the background and spamming Tomb Tanglers and Sundews once more, we were able to get it on our 3rd try. Day 13 was a conveyor belt that's running for Prime Minister in the United Kingdom, and Day 14 is a forcibly stun-locked mission, with only Sunbeam and Tombstones able to make the sun required, and you need to use both of them to get past the sunlock. I actually went back to my Summoner's playthrough to remember what my verdict for this day was, but I barely even mentioned it there, so I'm just gonna say since it is forcibly sun-blocked, and it doesn't count in regards to the sun part, as it's a gimmick level that forces the sun to be made only one way.
You're a liar, and you will spend an eternity on this shit.
Day 15 was a plan your defense, and I mean, we all know what I ended up doing, but I already did the Daisy Bell joke twice now, so just pretend I said something else funny or made another original meme here. Day 16, I was just very indecisive. I originally restarted because there were no tombstones, so I grabbed a Solar Sage. Then I restarted again because I saw Sun Tombstones spawn in later, and then I lost a 3rd time because I realized it wasn't possible without Solar Sage, and I beat it the final time with absolutely no problems. Also, this world introduced King Zombies, but we only have a few days left anyway. Day 17, more potions, but there were 8 whole Sun Tombstones at the start, with more spawning throughout, so we never had an issue defending against the rising hordes, and made it out pretty perfectly. Day 18, a second survive with the given plants has hit the Dark Ages, and Day 19 was protect the endangered Magnet Shrooms, which I failed the first 2 times due to Tomb Tangler being very selective for when they decide to murder people. 3rd time around, we just prioritize heavy defenses on all 3 Magnet Shroom rows, and just let the Gargantuars take the mowers at the last part. And with Day 20 being the fight where Zomba shows up with a slut dragon who won't stop talking about skateboarding, we were done with the Dark Ages. And now we were on to Neon Mixtape Tour, one of the harder worlds due to the whole music upgrades for faster zombies, and their vicious varieties that throw hammers into our plans. Early on, we won't have to worry about this, or at least I thought, and we employ the Spore Shroom strat early on for the free additional shooters, and the first few days obviously have nothing too dangerous for us, though there is one gimmick I should mention. The punk rock zombies who kick plants around are affected by Magnet Shroom too, and will actually just instantly die to their attack, making Magnet Shrooms an effective way of dealing with them altogether. However, we meet our first big hurdle on as early as day 5, where we have to protect 4 different plants. And with low inadequate sun production, we saw several losses through both fat beets getting overwhelmed and punk rock zombies kicking the walnuts into orbit. Though, unsurprisingly, Magnet Shroom actually ended up being what saved us from impending doom, with Daisy Chain doing the rest of the work. Day 6 was the conveyor belt mission, who has led to the deaths of several employees due to OSHA violations. Day 7, I also failed multiple times due to the mass hordes of buckets and cones, and I just couldn't keep up. So at this point, I decided to once again recruit Enchantment to the team to help with the shortcomings and help us push through. I was also getting concerned because this was only day 7, and already the second day I was dealing with making it through. Day 8, I also failed the first time, it being the introduction of roller skates, but it wasn't nearly as bad as I just made it through with more buffs. Day 9, survive with the given plants? No, but I'll give them something else. Day 10, conveyor belt mission. Day 11, pre-picked plants. And day 12 was the introduction of the Gargantuar, which is actually one of the most dangerous of all the Gargantuars, due to its ranged one-shot attack. We destroyed all the other zombies and just used an enchantment on them. Day 13 was another plan your defense day, and we do the standard Daisy Bell, but followed up with a third column of Magnet Shrooms, which is just barely enough to get us through the day without an issue, as it definitely got close at some parts. Day 14 was a pre-picked plants wave. I started writing another theory the other day. Day 15 was another protect your plants with a full column of fat beets. We lost the first time around due to not having enough weapons on them early on, though the second time around, after we got the sundews down and some daisy chains, we were able to eviscerate the roller skates before they became a problem. Day 16 was the ultimate battle wave. That was the monster you see in the corner of your eyes when you fall asleep. Day 17 introduced the imps again, and this day was pretty close, but we did end up getting it on our first try, just barely through, though, with only 2 lawnmowers left. And day 18 was super close too, with me once again surviving with only 2 lawnmowers left. The real debate being between using Sundew Tangler or not, to make up more sun over time, or just get the daisy chains and be done with it. Day 19, conveyor belt. Pretend I crashed out here for like 5 minutes. Day 20 was another rough one where I failed the first and second time due to one specific thing, not really anything in specific, though the solution was just locking in and tactically placing the magnet shrooms and getting daisy chains up fully as fast as possible. Day 21, oh, cutter, no, don't look. Day 21 was bad. It was a Don't Trample the Flowers mission, and that alone is pretty bad because it has some of the faster zombies here. Combine this with the whole hordes and these freaking breakdancing zombies constantly throwing them over the edge, and even kicking zombies off of Sundew's vines, causing the zombie that was still tangled to be temporarily invincible. And Vampircini's failing to set up in time almost every single time, with virtually no help of me making it through this. Thus, I had to ask for help from Solar Sage again, but even with that, I was still losing some days, and I barely came out with a win, only getting lucky because a breakdancer zombie threw another zombie over the flowers, causing it to set off my other lawnmower dealing with the other big Gargantuar. Day 22 was a conveyor belt mission, but it actually did have spore shrooms, but since I was already struggling hard, I didn't bother redoing to see if this day was possible with only spore shrooms, as we've already established that it doesn't count. Day 23 being our first real fight with the nerd zombie in his arcade. Now we actually have a way to deal with him completely without his arcade machine ever becoming an issue, but I'll explain later as I didn't have a chance to do it here. Day 24 was a plan your defense wave, which went about the way you'd expect, but with Gargantuars at the end though, the lawnmowers dealt with them, thus another first try mission. Day 25 was just another nerd battle fight of attrition. Nothing really of note here, though I will say Sundew Tangler is great at stalling and disrupting his whole act. And day 26 being a defense spore shrooms day, which I promptly lost the first time due to incompetence, though it really wasn't that bad of a day, with me just changing my strategy around a little, placing magnet shrooms and letting the lawnmower deal with the Gargantuar at the end. Day 27, conveyor belt mission explains Five Nights at Freddy's lore.
Dude, I swear, if Freddy Fazbear tried to sell me insurance again, I'm gonna screw.
And day 28 was the other big bad, which introduces the Boombog zombie, who, when he reaches a certain point, will stun most plants on the map. Ironically though, he is not the worst thing here. It's the freaking nerd zombies and the rest of the horde they summon that destroys everything. However, I did mention that I have a solution for them, and that solution is, since they can't push their arcades over Sundew Tangler, you can actually plant them at the leftmost column and subsequently prevent them from ever using their arcade machine to begin with. This did not make this day easy by any means, but none of this was so far, so the day's done. Whatever, moving on. Day 29, I failed twice just because I didn't hit the Sundew Tangler block for the nerds in time, which I promptly crashed out and restarted both times, but the third time around I got it, and the Gargantuar at the end was never making it past the mower. Day 30 was never have more than 15 plants. This actually translated to an easier day, with the only close part being the Gargantuar I stunlocked promptly with daisy chains at the end. And with day 31 being survive with the given plants, and day 32 being the boss fight where Zomboss puts a bunch of slurs over a rap song about one of his ex-boyfriend's dongs or something, we were done with the Neon Mixtape tour. And we're on to Jurassic Marsh, and I knew from the very get-go that this was going to be bad. Day 1 went fine, but on as early as day 2, we already face our first multi-loss, as there are entire packs of bucket and bonehead zombies, all along the way being kicked further by raptors. Yeah, I can deal with the bucket heads using magnet shroom, but the boner heads, I'm kind of left with only Sundew Tangler, and possibly 2 daisy chains. This is really bad for us, and keep in mind, this is also with enchantment on standby. Day 4 is decent, with us able to first try it using daisy chains and magnet shrooms, though it was close with us losing 2 of our 5 lawnmowers. Day 5 went pretty much the same as day 4, with me consistently utilizing Sundew Tangler to swallow Bonehead's whole. And day 6 also went the same, but significantly closer, with me losing over half my lawnmowers and having to do some quick time recycling in order to stop the remaining zombies. Day 7, don't trample the flowers, and it's a conveyor belt mission. And day 8 is where I decide to introduce the next parasite onto our team. Now, a lot of people probably guessed the next member because, well, I mentioned it earlier, but we are going to be welcoming Perfume Shroom to the team to not only spawn an additional raptor, but take over any dinosaurs in that row, as kind of like with cauliflower, it has a symbiotic relationship with the dinosaurs, utilizing them for its own defensive means. Oh, by the way, I had a bunch of comments telling me that I was wrong for calling parasitism a symbiotic relationship, and they believe symbiosis is only when both parties benefit, and although that does have a social definition for it, this actually isn't true in regards to biology, as symbiotic in biology is defined as 2 organisms or parties in close relationship or association with each other. This relationship is not mutually beneficial, and there are actually 3 types of symbiotic relationships. Mutualism, where both parties benefit, commensalism, where one party benefits and the other isn't affected, and parasitism, where one party benefits and the other is harmed. I implore you to not just nerd react post this. Day 14 was survived with a given plan. Day 15, we had a Is somebody mowing their f***ing lawn? We had a Gargantuar on the way, but fortunately that was really only the big bad, and we just plant food, refresh, and enchantment, and the day is done. Day 16 is the ultimate battle day. Sometimes I hear screaming when I fart really loud. Day 17, raptors and more boneheads, but there's nothing really of significance here, as I was just able to first try it no issue. Day 18 was a little bit rough, as it was half a dozen of the T-Rex dinosaurs, who are very strangely cute for some reason. Their ability, instead of directly moving the zombies like other dinosaurs, provides them with a speed buff that persists until they stop to eat a plant. This is really bad, but I still maintain that Ankylosaurus is worse, for now at least. Day 19, I was saved from a horrific fate with the Burning Love of the Conveyor Belt mission. Day 20, produce X amount of sun translates to a valid excuse for me to use Solar Sage, outside of it being absolutely necessary. And day 21, I think, is possibly the day that almost came close to making this challenge all hands on deck, as I failed this one 5 times, as their Jurassic bullies can't be magnet shroom like boneheads, and they take a truckload of damage to put down, which are also being constantly forced along the line by T-Rexes, giving me very little time to fight all of the unstoppable forces with only enchantment, and even with Perfume Shroom, able to provide me with instant KOs as well. So naturally, the eventual solution to this was just another instant KO plant being Cauliflower, who seduced all the zombies with monkey hypnosis, being just barely enough to survive the wave. I mean, this literally, even with Cauliflower, we barely made it out of this though. Day 22, I plan your defense wave, but with 2 daisy chain rows, a few magnet shrooms, and a column of more expensive, less useful walnuts, we were able to barely inch out a no lawnmower loss win. Day 23 was the all-hands-on-deck day, as it was the day where I officially had to put Solar Sage back on the team, even though they're obnoxiously powerful. Reason being, I just don't think this one is possible without some larger level of capital backing for the Parasites, as they just aren't fast and powerful enough on their own. And this is even beyond using it a single time, as even that wasn't enough. So I rewired the Solar Sage added challenge by making the new challenge, if I am using it, I am not allowed to lose a single lawnmower, which was still a vicious challenge, but we did make it through day 23 eventually. Day 24 was a loss the first time around, but overall didn't have too much of an added difficulty increase or decrease, and we were able to get it a second time around, partially thanks to Pteranodons screwing their own side over. Day 25 introduced the Ankylos, and even with the new Solar Sage rules, and with Perfume Shroom, this fight was really rough. The whole Ankylo punching zombies all the way across the map, and then bonking back any plant that collides with it while flying, and overall just being very, very insufferable to deal with. I already made the King Crimson joke last playthrough though, I did eventually get through it too, due to just spamming Solar Sage and Perfume Shroom as soon as I got it, but even then I was straight up sweating through the whole process. And day 26 was almost insurmountably horrid, as well as having Ankylos and mold colonies in the back, meaning if a zombie gets bonked over, I have roughly 2 tiles to react before they make it to the shed of no return. Ironically, in these situations, half the time the Pteranodons ended up being more helpful, as they were turning the more armored ones around, permanently ruining them. Though it was really me just daisy chain Vampircini comboing in desperate attempts to block off the zombies until I can Solar Stage them again, or finish them off in some other way. Ultimately, it took forever, and it was the third big hard day within the past 5 days, but I stopped the zombies from making it to the shed beyond the fence.
They call it the Shed of No Return. Oh, how ominous.
Day 27 was another Plan Your Defenses day, and it was actually the first one of these we failed in a while. Fortunately, it was just due to me being a goofball, and the second try I was able to turn it around and make it through relatively well with no further problems. Day 28, with Solar Sage to our arsenal, we were massing up an army of daisy chains, which allowed us to essentially stunlock the oppositional Gargantuars with massive damage. I might not have even needed Solar Sage for this one, but given how much of a nightmare Jurassic Marsh was, I wasn't about to redo it. Day 29, survived without asking what Grab-A-Han is. Day 30 had multiple Gargantuars, but once again Daisy Chain is just strong enough to stop them, and if they weren't, we had enchantment. And with Day 31 being yet another survive with the given plants, and Day 32 Dr. Zomba showing up in the Whipposaurus, we were officially done with the hardest world so far, yet that actually made me finally have to fully take Solar Sage onto the team in order to make it through. But if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, please leave me a comment down below telling me what you enjoyed as well as what you would like to see next, both Plants vs. Zombies and otherwise. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing as I upload new long-form content every week, as well as new shorts every single day, encapsulating variety content, including challenges, guides, memes, audience participation, playthroughs, and even theories. Also, consider joining the Discord with the link in the description, as well as the pinned comment to become part of the show. But with all that being said, thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.